Good morning, everyone. This is Rachel Defends You, and I am joined today with the incredible Luis Leal. He is a true San Antonio original, an eighth-generation native, a proud father, an entrepreneur, and a self-proclaimed insurance nerd. He's also a drummer, a Red Sox loyalist, which I'll forgive you for because he knows I'm in there, and a diehard Spurs fan.
I
Um,
had to put that in there just because I knew we were doing this in New York.
Yeah, I'm like literally right across from Yankee Stadium. But anyways, Lewis is going to tell us more about his life and his background. But just suffice it to say that he didn't plan or set out to begin working in insurance. But he's had this great love story where he stumbled into it and he's never looked back. He's become an insurance professional, and since 2008, he's been building a career. He helps families, he helps businesses, and he's going to help us today understand more about navigating the complex world of insurance, property, and casualty. I'm hoping to ask him a lot of specific questions that I know my people are dying to understand about what kind of happens when you get a DUI, or you get in some kind of car trouble, reckless driving, you get some criminal trouble on your back, how to deal with insurance, how to know what's going to happen. Thank you so much. Is it Luis or Luis? Am I saying it wrong?
Luis, yeah,
I knew it
Luis.
had, again, more oomph than I was giving it credit for. Could you give us a little bit? Thank you so much for joining me today. Can you give us a little bit about your background? And you were telling me before we hit record, like you have an illustrious and long career in insurance. I would love everyone to hear about that.
Yeah, so yeah, I've been excited about insurance since 2008. I'm an
Excited about
insurance
insurance.
agent.
That's good tagline.
Yeah. You do the math on that. I don't know how. I guess a quick math: 17 years total in insurance, 15 years as an agency owner. We primarily focus on property and casualty insurance.
Mhm.
So that is like your auto, your home, your business and commercial insurance. We don't do any life insurance, disability. So we're really specialists. We're really focused on the property and casualty side, and we know that realm really well. But yeah, we're located in San Antonio. I'm born and raised in San Antonio. Have loved it here my entire life, and I'm excited anytime somebody wants to come and visit San Antonio. Not necessarily to take them to the Alamo. That's a little hidden secret. But yeah, anything else about the Alamo City, I'm absolutely in love with. I'm eighth generation San Antonian,
Phenomenal.
fourth generation entrepreneur. My great grandfather started a grocery store in a little town outside of San Antonio. My grandfather had four businesses. I have two uncles who own businesses. One of them is an insurance agent, so I try not to
Hmm.
promote his business too much.
No, it's
But
really special. And I think also we were talking about how so much of the insurance business is, about connections and about networking.
right.
And just want people to know that while you might be in Texas, if there's anything where you have an insurance need and it's not in Texas, they can hit me up, they can hit you up, and we'll try to find them. I mean, I always say, like, I practice in New York and New Jersey, but if I can't help you, I will use my networking connections to find you the person that can. And I think, Luis, you feel the same. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. We're licensed in multiple states, so we do offer some insurance products outside of Texas. But if you have listeners who are in a state that we're not in, we can absolutely connect them to some of the best insurance agents across the country.
That's phenomenal.
Absolutely.
And you own your own agency at this point?
Yeah, correct. I'm a partner at my insurance group. There's three business partners, or I have three business partners. And I happen to, at the moment, be focused on commercial insurance. I work with a lot of small businesses, contractors, that kind of thing. But like I said, I've been doing property and casualty for 17 years now, so I got a ton of experience when it comes to even auto and home insurance.
Yeah, well, that's totally why I wanted to pick your brain because, so as you know, I'm a criminal defense attorney and I'm focused on driving related cases. So that
Right.
means generally, DWI, DUI, refusals, reckless driving, etc., and all the kind of things where people can get in trouble in their car. It tends to be a
Yeah.
place in which I specialize, for better or for worse. And I found myself kind of falling into that as well, similar to how you fell into insurance. That's how life works. But I get a
Yeah.
lot, I get a lot of questions from clients about, how they will be impacted after dealing with one of these criminal, after dealing with one of these cases. I can get them through it with minimal impact to their life typically. But there are things that we don't have control over here on the criminal defense side. And there are things in which I don't even know how to advise them because, I always say insurance is a private company. They can do whatever they want. So I'm super excited to talk to you today and hopefully ask you some questions and pick your brain.
Yeah.
Um, just,
Let's do it.
yeah, totally. About, what they'll do. So my first question is, what will happen to someone from an insurance standpoint after they get, let's say, a DWI? Let's say you get popped for driving while intoxicated. How quick do they find out? Like, what should an individual expect?
Yeah, so great question to start with. So I will tell you right up front, the insurance company is every term. So your auto insurance policy is typically going to be a 6 month term. Sometimes carriers will offer you an annual term. Typically at renewal time is when you're going to see an impact if there is a conviction. So that's really important, right? Because
So just getting arrested is not going to do it.
correct. Yeah. Just getting arrested is not going to uh raise up any red flags. It's not going to really do any harm, if you will, to your driving history. So uh the time or when it impacts your driving history is when there's a conviction on your driving record. And it won't usually impact your insurance rates until the renewal after your conviction.
Got
So
it.
you got
So meaning it's not going to have some midterm impact. Like
correct. Yeah,
generally speaking, it's not going to be impactful until that renewal, whether that's 6 months, 1 year, whatever.
correct. Yeah. So like let's say for instance you get arrested on a Friday
Mhm.
for allegedly driving drunk. You're not gonna wake up on Saturday morning and immediately see an impact to your insurance premium. That's just not how it works.
Well, that's good. I
Um,
mean, at least it gives you the time to plan and sort of fight out the case with your attorney and
yeah.
work in that regard. Do you see a difference? And this is one I've always wondered myself. Is there a difference between a DWI and a refusal? So a refusal would be refusing to submit to a chemical test. Is that any better than a DWI, or is that going to have the same impact for insurance
S-
purposes as a DUI?
So funny enough, the refusal is not actually a moving violation.
Mhm.
So it won't really impact it shouldn't at least impact your insurance rates.
Okay, so
Um,
that's a reason to consider maybe a refusal
correct.
as an
Yep.
option sometimes instead of a
Yep.
DUI.
Correct. Yeah, because the refusal is not a moving violation. Typically, what insurance companies are looking for are anything that is gonna. So, like if you're, for instance, if you're obstructing a highway, if you're or obstructing a
Mhm.
roadway, if you are convicted of DWI or DUI, if you are convicted of reckless driving, speeding,
Mhm.
anything like that illegal lane change,
Mhm.
those things are definitely going to have an impact on your rates. But simply refusing to take a breathalyzer is not a
Shouldn't.
moving violation, so it shouldn't affect your insurance rates.
I'm just thinking anecdotally that I have had people that have said to me that the refusal ended up affecting them. However, in those instances, it wasn't their only one. Like they had had a DUI and then a refusal, or they had had two refusals, something, there was a history. So it sounds like then, at least anecdotally, like they'll probably see it. And if it's maybe just a one-off refusal, it's not going to take action. But if it's kind of within a larger picture, it might cause it. It's not automatic, in other words,
Yeah, so one thing that you have to consider is that the insurance company typically offers a ton of discounts, right?
Mm,
A lot of those discounts include things like good driving history, no claims or claims-free discount. Some might have whatever, right?
mm,
And so anytime that there's a change to your driving record, that could impact the discounts that you now are
mm.
qualifying for. So while the violation itself might not impact your rate, you
That's
might
interesting.
lose a discount, which then will have an impact to your
That's
insurance
interesting.
premiums.
So it might have been that the reason they were feeling the impact was different than I was understanding it in the
Yeah.
moment. That's interesting. Do you know anything about how long they can kind of hold it against you?
Oh boy.
I had heard 3 years, I had heard 10 years, you know,
It's gonna
in,
it's gonna vary carrier to carrier. So each company will rate differently. Some carriers will rate 3 years. Some carriers will rate 5 years. I've seen, especially here in Texas, I've seen some carriers rate 7 years.
Mm,
for a violation. And unfortunately, it's based on the date of conviction, not the date
mm,
of the incident. So even though, your case drug on for a year, for
right,
instance,
right.
that conviction happened a year later, that's when the clock starts.
Interesting. And is there any, do you know anything about how they make a determination about like the biggest, the worst of the worst if someone gets canceled? Like what makes them determine whether, okay, I'm going to raise your rate versus I'm going to cancel you?
Yeah, I mean, there's usually more to it than just the one violation. Um, I mean, the insurance industry is very, very heavily rated by state governments, and so an insurance company can't just cancel you for, one violation. Typically,
Okay.
there's a history there, right? So there's
So it's the straw that broke the camel's back, as it
yeah,
were.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
Typically there's going to be there's got to be a justifiable reason for an insurance company to make a change like that. So it might be multiple violations. It might be a situation where maybe a customer has multiple claims and the
Mhm.
violation. The type of damage that's paid out, whether that's property damage, whether that's bodily injury, all of those things kind of impact your rates. How much is paid out? So there's a bunch of different factors. It's not ultimately just one factor that will make a determination on whether an insurance company is going to cancel your policy or not.
Hmm. And you obviously have, this incredible business where you work directly with consumers, or in your case right now, businesses, but over the years, consumers
Sure.
directly. And I think that's a real benefit to people, right? Because like for a lot of years, I had insurance through a company that shall remain nameless, but I didn't have an individual that I spoke with.
Right.
Right? And I've switched actually recently because of issues with my rates, mostly because of my husband, not me. Just on the record.
That's
But
fair.
you can't drop your husband, by the way. You have to
No, you can't. You can't.
you can't drop him off your insurance. I mean, I guess you could
That's
drop him,
right.
but you can't drop him off your insurance. I found that out the hard way. But anyways, my point is to say that when I made the switch, I went with a company more like yours, where I have a person. I actually have an insurance agent. And I imagine there's some benefits to that, even in terms of advising you. Like clients will ask me, for example, should I notify the insurance company? And my feeling is, so legally, you have no obligation to notify the insurance company. That said, they typically find out, like as you said, when they're reassessing rates and they pull somebody's driver's history. If you're working with a company like yours where you have an agent, is there any benefit? I mean, should you call your agent? Should you tell them what happened? Like, is there something that an agent can do to advise or be a friend to you in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the entire relationship that an insurance agent has with their customer. I mean, I will tell you, our agency, we are advocates for our clients. I mean, that we
Mm,
become an advocate for our client once, they once the policy is issued in our office, right? And so
mhm,
anytime that there's a claim issue, anytime there's a policy question, billing issue, you name it, we want to be the first point of contact for the customer. And we can certainly help them navigate the situation. You got to remember too that insurance agents, we're consumers just like our clients are,
mm,
first and foremost, right? So we can certainly empathize with a client. Also, we're local, right? So we see the impact, we feel the impact.
mm.
Economically, we feel the impact of insurance rates going up across the board. Um, and so we can, help clients navigate really any type of situation that comes up when with regards to their insurance. And we want to be that first phone call that a
Mm.
customer makes, anytime they have a question about insurance or navigating that process.
It's all about the relationships, right? And like that's what I
Absolutely.
discovered too. Like it's really invaluable to have that relationship. Because even like I unrelated to DWIs and stuff, but I was thinking about getting a new car. And I'm like, calling up the insurance agent, like, what do you think about this one versus that one? Or, and I think yeah, having that individual relationship is huge. And then you shouldn't be embarrassed because, people
Right.
don't realize like this kind of stuff affects everybody, and the part of the
Absolutely.
reason I'm in this business is because it affects nice, normal, regular people, too.
Yeah.
And and I think that people shouldn't be afraid to call their lawyer, their insurance agent, to develop. I'm always about like making a team around
Yeah.
when they get a case. And I think what's interesting out of this conversation is that your insurance agent can be part of that team. right? I've
Yep.
always thought about it as, attorney, maybe a counselor or a therapist if you need one, maybe you might need different kinds of attorneys depending on what's going on in your life. But this has really pointed out that if you're lucky enough to have an insurance agent, and if you're not, you should get one,
Yeah.
that can really be part of your team. And it's a team that, whether it's dealing with a criminal case, or even just, people get tickets and they get like 10 tickets, in a row, or accidents, like these things happen.
Yeah.
So having that insurance agent, I think that relationship could be really huge.
Yeah, and a couple. So just kind of add on to that, a couple
Mhm.
of things that I'll mention that I mean, I think I speak for the majority of insurance agents out there, is that we are not adversarial to our clients at all, right?
People
We
don't realize
are,
that, I think. They think
yeah,
they're
yeah,
free. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I think there's a stigma that comes with being an insurance agent. Sometimes we get looked at like we get equated to like sleazy car salesman, right? Like we're just trying to
Mm,
sell a policy and
lawyers
move
too.
forward. Yeah. And the unfortunate thing about that is that, I mean, we are on a mission. My agency has been on a mission to try and change that stigma with our clients. And so that's why we have outreach to our clients on a regular basis. Like, hey, we're advocating for you. We want to help you out throughout we try to educate our clients. Um, and we also, I think it's important to understand too that insurance agents, while we work on behalf of the insurance company, we don't work for the insurance company. We
Mhm.
work for our clients,
Mm.
and we want the best. We want the best for them. We want to help them out. And
Well, and your
so,
interests are aligned, right? Like you want to keep that
yeah,
customer as long as possible. So you don't want them to
exactly.
get dropped. You don't want them to, that hurts your
Yeah.
business as
Yeah,
well.
and there's different kinds of insurance agents, right? So there are what are called captive agents. They're agents that essentially can only sell one company's product, right?
Mm.
And then you have independent insurance agents who
Mhm.
represent multiple carriers and usually have multiple options to place customers with. And so if a situation works out where a carrier is dropping a customer, typically an independent insurance agent is going to have other options available for that customer.
Right. There's like high risk insurance companies. So is your
Yeah.
company a captive, or is your company do?
No, we are an independent insurance agent, so we represent multiple. I mean, we have probably 20 different carriers
That's
that we
great.
represent. The other thing I'll mention very briefly is um, if a customer calls an insurance company direct
Hmm.
to ask a question about a claim, to ask a question about a potential moving violation, et cetera, I guarantee you that will open up some kind of
Mm.
file with the insurance company. That doesn't happen when you call your insurance
Mm.
agent. If you
Mm.
call your insurance agent first, we can be that first line of
Mm.
defense for you to say, yeah, this justifies calling the insurance company. Let's go ahead and move forward with that.
That's interesting. That's interesting. It's similar to how I feel as somebody's advocate on the legal side as a lawyer. I'm always telling people like what you say is evidence, right? If
Right.
you say
Yep.
something that potentially could be used against you, but what I say as your advocate is not evidence
Right.
against you. It's argument, right? So I have a
Right.
lot more leeway to sort of float things or ask questions, or even
Yep.
sometimes call on a client's behalf, with professional licenses or other kind of collateral things. I can call and say, I have a client who, I don't have to use your
Right.
name, no matter. And I'm
Right.
sure
Same.
similarly, you can kind of do that as well and say, hey, I have a client who has this issue, and not
Yep.
raise that red flag. But that's a really, really good tip. I hope that's something that sticks. I will definitely be giving people that tip.
Yeah. You
Um,
should.
yeah, that's a good one. What about accidents? Okay, so I once in a while, it's unfortunate when it happens, but once in a while I get a DWI case that involved an accident. And those are always the hardest, emotionally. They're always, these are tough cases to deal with. God willing, they're just property if we're lucky, but all kinds of things can happen out
Sure.
there. And I get a lot of questions. This is actually where a lot of times the rubber meets the road in terms of having that lawyer. People will
Right.
call me and say, the insurance company is calling me. They're asking me questions about the accident. I still have a pending criminal case maybe going on, and I don't know how to answer it. And I'll tell you what
Yeah.
I say from a lawyer standpoint, and then you tell me kind of from the insurance standpoint.
Okay.
My general experience is insurance will cover most of the time. While I think they technically could not cover, I think most insurance contracts have a provision in there somewhere that says, if you are convicted of DWI, we could choose not to cover. That
Right.
said, I've been doing this close to 20 years, and I can count on one hand the amount of times they haven't covered. I think just
Yeah.
because maybe from a litigation standpoint, it's just like easier to cover most of the time. So first of all, most of the time they cover, even though they could not. Secondly, I say you have an obligation to work with your insurance company if you want them to cover. So if you want them to cover, you got to tell them, at least from your perspective, what happened in that accident. And so I tell clients, I think you should call and I think you should answer questions about the facts of the accident. Who was where, who was located in, in this direction, where the impacts were, whatever, the factual pieces. If you start getting questions about, did you drink anything or something of that nature, I feel like that's where your interests are now no longer aligned, potentially. And then I would tell a client, give them my phone number and tell
Yeah.
them, my attorney has instructed me to give you this card. This is my lawyer. She'll answer any questions that you have concerning that. That's how I advise people. I mean, am I doing the right thing? Can you add anything? What do you think?
Yeah. So what I will say is, um, when we get phone calls or about that, or let's take a step back for a second. So you mentioned um, claims that potentially haven't paid out. I can say with almost full certainty that the reason the insurance company chose not to pay in that instance was because the insured failed to communicate with the insurance company,
So that
right? And
cooperation is important. That
correct,
communication.
yeah. You have a contractual obligation
Right.
as a policyholder to work with your insurance company because otherwise they won't be able to defend you in the
Sure.
event of a claim, right? A lawsuit against you. So I can say with almost absolute certainty that the reason that in those cases that you're referring to, where the companies chose not to pay out, was because the insured failed to complete their obligation as an insured on the policy. Um, Now, in reference to the questions that you were talking about, when in a claim situation, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. An insured should be able to call the insurance company and go over the facts of the specific claim. If there are outlier questions that the insured doesn't feel comfortable with, absolutely, have them refer back to their attorney, someone like you, who can, discuss any matters outside of what happened outside of the facts of loss,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of, help guide them, your client in this instance, in terms of helping navigate that particular situation. But yeah, I mean, exactly what you said, I think is the perfect way to handle that situation. Have the insured, have the customer call their insurance adjuster to go over the facts of loss. I typically recommend that a customer write out their statement
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to get asked multiple times the same question in a different way,
Mm-hmm.
um, and or by multiple people, right? So there may
Mm-hmm.
be one claims adjuster that's assigned to it to handles bodily injury coverage. There may be another adjuster that's handling the property damage side of it, and so they're going to be asked the same questions by multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything is off in those statements, it could give the insurance company a reason to deny a claim. So
That's
it's always good to write out a statement and make sure that your answers are consistent each time that you're being asked those questions.
It's interesting. I guess I would think of it a little differently, is just in terms of writing out a statement if they've got a pending criminal case, could be discoverable. So not to get in the weeds on the law part, but this is a place where I would say definitely talk to your attorney about whether, if they're
Yeah,
asking you to write out a statement. I'm not necessarily 100% against it, but I think that's a moment where that team effort comes in and where
yeah,
you
for
say, you know
sure.
what, let me just talk to my lawyer about because procedurally where this case is, where we think this is headed. Because if I thought it might be in a trial posture, and if I thought, someone might have to testify, obviously something written could be discoverable. You could have to turn it over. So I'm just thinking, like a lawyer here,
Yeah, that makes sense. That
that
makes
might be
sense.
a moment where you'd want to get that attorney involved and say, should I? And there's ways, there's ways around it too, where you can maybe do bullet points, or you could maybe have the lawyer draft as work product,
Right,
bullet points that you could use. There's ways
right.
to consider it. But yeah, that's where that team approach becomes so important, because you need to get the full picture.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah.
So in terms of, when somebody gets a DUI or some serious traffic infraction that's potentially, you know, limiting, are you familiar with like the SR22s and all that? I
Yeah.
don't know if they have that.
Mhm.
Could you speak to that a little bit? I'm not.
Yeah, so the SR22 typically what that refers to is a filing with the state that you're in that the insurance company will do on your behalf. So as a driver, confirming or verifying that you have insurance coverage that meets the minimum requirement to be driving in the state that you're in.
Mhm.
Um, Typically, insurance companies charge a nominal fee for it. It's just it's an administrative fee, if you will, just to allow the insurance company, to file that with the state because they have to do it at every renewal.
Mm,
And so it's just a way for the DMV or whatever entity is enforcing uh, driver's licenses to know that a person does have the minimum, required insurance to be driving in that state.
but it
Um,
does also create a moment where, we were talking about notifying or not. I mean, it does create that moment where if there was any chance insurance wasn't going to find out, they're definitely finding out because now you've got to get that
yeah,
S.
I mean it's an assumption that an insurance company is going to make. Why does someone need to have
Mhm.
an SR22? Um, it, that doesn't have to be disclosed. The insurance, I mean, you can call your insurance agent and say, hey, I need an SR22. The insurance agent is going to want to know why so that they
Mhm.
can help you prepare for that. But it's really not going to have an impact on your insurance premiums other than charging that fee
Mhm.
to the insurance company to help file that notice to the state.
I've heard of a strategy, and I think it's probably BS, but I'll take your temperature on it anyway. I've heard of a strategy where people will get outside insurance for the SR22. Like they'll
Yeah,
use.
I mean, we have done that before
Mhm.
because there are some carriers that don't offer it. There's some
But it
carriers that
doesn't, I guess my point is, I think people do it because they think it's somehow hiding the ball. And I think at the end of it,
no,
they're still not hiding the ball.
no. You got to remember that insurance companies talk to each other, whether
Right.
consumers realize that or not. Insurance companies talk to each other, and they're going to get hip to it really quickly.
Mhm.
So I don't recommend that as a like first, you know,
Or you could
uh,
have to do it if they don't offer it, but it's not
correct.
like it's not going to get you anything special. Like I think people think it's this like you're being cute by,
Yeah.
getting an SR22 from someone else, but I
Mm-mm.
don't think it works.
Insurance companies have been doing this for over 100 years.
Yeah,
There's
they figured you out. You're not going to outsmart
Yeah, no, no.
So what, in sort of conclusion here, someone finds themselves in a situation again with a DUI or serious traffic infraction. Is there anything they can do to sort of does it just have to run its course? Like insurance is going to find out, they're going to do what they do, they're going to hold it against you for however long they're going to hold it against you. Is there any proactive step that an individual could take, whether it's taking a class, whether it's getting counseling? Is there anything at all? Is it seeking out other insurance? Like, is there anything at all strategically that an individual can do after a DUI arrest or a
Yeah,
conviction to
yeah.
try
I
to
mean,
mitigate the
I,
problem?
I, I think being proactive in a situation like that is super helpful. And by that I mean reaching out to your insurance agent and having a conversation with them. Making sure first and foremost, hey, I have not been convicted, but this is what happened. And allowing the insurance agent to kind of help navigate,
Mm,
walk alongside them and navigate that situation. The earlier that we get involved, the better, the more options that we're going to have, the better options that we're going to have to help the customer ultimately, is our goal, right? So, getting your insurance agent involved early. Don't call the insurance company because
mm,
that's going to open up a can of worms that you might not be prepared for.
mm,
But call your insurance agent, explain the situation, make sure that they're aware that you've not been convicted. This is just a,
mm,
FYI, this might be coming down the way. And then ultimately, I mean, if you are in a position to be able to fight the DUI, then absolutely make sure to
okay.
do that. And if it turns into a lesser charge, great. That works out for everybody involved.
Mhm.
But I think being proactive and getting your agent involved early is ultimately the best way to go.
And things like, these defensive driving classes and all that. I mean, is that just a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound? I mean, is that
You know,
like not going to do it?
what's funny is that most insurance companies don't even offer a defensive driving discount.
Hmm.
There are like a handful of carriers that I can think of that still offer it. And even then it's not really that much of an impact. I think it,
Mhm.
might be like in the single digits as a percentage
Right.
of a
$7 a
discount.
month or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not going to be enough to move the needle. I know some
No.
bundle if you've got somebody
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that has, maybe you can add your home insurance. Like there's ways
Right.
maybe to bring it down a little bit or make yourself
Yeah.
more desirable as a client.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't thank
absolutely.
you enough. How can people find you? How can they reach out to you? Because I think the biggest takeaway from an insurance standpoint for me is how important it is to have that relationship.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I
people, they go online and they get insurance through, whatever, one of these like websites, and they don't have that relationship. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is like, if something like this happens to you and you're lucky enough to have an agent, that agent can be part of the team, the same
Yep.
part of the defense team, and can help you on the financial side in the same way I can help on the legal side. So how do
Yeah.
we get in touch? And
The way that I see kind of insurance agents, especially a lot of the ones that I have relationships with across the country, is that we want to be that professional service, just like customers have financial advisors,
Mhm.
they have CPAs, they have attorneys. We want to come alongside and be a part of that professional services team. So, absolutely, I'm all over social media and I post a lot of content on insurance because I love insurance. I
Insurance.
also post, yeah, I also post a lot of stuff about my kiddo, and he's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. I think I'm a good follow on social, but Luis Luis Leal Leal SA for San Antonio.
Hmm.
Luis Leal SA on pretty much any social that's out there.
And I'll link it in the show notes as well. Thank you so, so much. I can't tell you how helpful this is. It helps me advocate for my clients, and I know you're going to help a lot of people out there. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Rachel. I appreciate it.